I never imagined the most important promise I'd ever make would be whispered in the fluorescent glow of a hospital room, my father's breath shallow, his hand cold in mine. Name her after me, Lucy, promise me, he rasped, and though tears blurred my vision, I nodded, clutching his frail hand like I could tether him to this world just a little longer. I didn't know then that keeping that promise would tear my family apart, or that it would expose something so much darker than a stolen baby name. And I found out I was pregnant, my whole world shifted. I'd been married to Noah for 3 years, and after months of trying, the two pink lines on the test felt like a miracle. I walked around with a glow, my hands constantly drifting to my belly, whispering the name to myself, my daughter, my father's legacy. On the surface, my family seemed picture perfect. My mother always polished and commanding, my younger sister Cindy with her endless charm and ability to make people bend to her will, and me, the responsible one, the one who carried burdens no one else wanted. But if you pressed on that perfect picture, cracks would spread like glass under pressure. I was the one who had slept in hospital chairs when dad battled cancer. I was the one who begged mom to stay only for her to shrug and say, I didn't sign up for this kind of life before moving in with her boyfriend. And Cindy, she floated in once a week with store-bought cookies, snapping selfies with dad while I helped him to the bathroom. Yet somehow, Cindy was always the golden child in mom's eyes. The day everything began to unravel was supposed to be joyful. I was lying on the exam table, ultrasound gel cool against my skin, watching the flicker of life inside me on the black and white screen. That's when my phone buzzed, Cindy's name lit up, I picked up smiling, ready to share my own news. Hey girl, she said breathlessly, I just found out I'm pregnant too, and I already know the name. The room tilted, I froze. Cindy, I whispered, my voice breaking, you know that's my name, dad's name, his dying wish, I told you. But she just laughed nervously. Okay, but I need this, it's the only thing keeping me going since dad died. Anger burned through me, sharper than the ultrasound wand pressing into my stomach. Cindy, you don't get to take this from me, you weren't there, you didn't hold his hand when he begged me, you didn't. Lucy, she interrupted, her voice firm. Grandma already knows. She's so excited about my baby, you know how confused she gets with her dementia. Two Bobbies with the same name would break her heart. I looked up at the monitor at the tiny flutter of my daughter's heart and whispered her name silently. Mine, dad's, no one else. We'll talk later, I said, ending the call before my rage spilled over. But by the time I got home, my mother was waiting on my porch. She didn't even say hello, she just crossed her arms and said coldly, you need to pick another name, Cindy's already claimed. Noah, assembling the crib in the living room, froze mid-screw. Are you serious right now? He asked, incredulous. Mom's eyes narrowed. I co-sign your mortgage, I pay your car insurance, your phone bill. Cindy has had 3 miscarriages, Lucy, let her have this one thing or I'll cut you off. Her words hit like a slap. I felt the air rush from my lungs, and for a moment I wanted to give in to keep the peace. But then I remembered Dad's hand in mine, his last words, and I shook my head. No, this is my daughter's name, I won't change it. The pressure didn't stop, it built. Phone calls at all hours, texts threatening bills, Cindy sending ultrasounds that I later realized were stolen from Google, and then the night it all came crashing down. When labor hit, it was brutal, 22 hours of agony. I was exhausted, delirious, gripping Noah's hand like it was the only thing keeping me alive. That's when the door creaked open, Mom and Cindy slipped inside, their faces tight. Last chance to be reasonable, Mom hissed. Cindy's only 2 months behind you, do you really want this family split forever over a name? Cindy was sobbing, rubbing her belly. Baby is the only reason I'm here, please, Lucy. I wanted to scream, I wanted to throw them out, but I was so tired. My body ached, my vision blurred, and I whispered the words that still haunt me. Fine, just leave, let me have this baby. 3 hours later, when my daughter was finally in my arms, I knew I had made a mistake. Because the moment of peace shattered with a knock on the door and a smile on my mother's face. Good news, she said sweetly. I called Brad to come support Cindy, he's so excited to become a father. The color drained from Cindy's face, you called who? And that's when everything began to spiral. Brad walked in, his smile wide until his eyes landed on Cindy. Wait, you're pregnant since when? Mom rushed to fill the silence, 7 months along with your daughter. The room fell silent, Brad laughed, bitter and sharp. That's impossible, I had a vasectomy 3 years ago, I've been tested, zero sperm count. Cindy's face crumbled, it must have failed. Brad pulled out his phone. Here's my results, last month, zero. You lied, Cindy, is this about that inheritance thing? The room tilted again, my newborn stirred in my arms, her tiny fingers curling against me. And in that moment I realized this wasn't just about a name. This was about secrets, lies, a web so tangled none of us might escape unscathed. I felt something snap inside me. I lunged forward, fingers grabbing at Cindy's belly, ready to tear away the padding I was sure was fake, but when my hand pressed down I felt it, a bump, solid, real. I staggered back, my mind racing. Wait, so you're pregnant? Cindy went utterly still. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw Noah's face go white as a sheet. Brad's voice cut through the silence, low and sharp. If it's not mine, then whose is it? His eyes locked on Noah. Noah's lips parted, but no words came out. And that was the moment, the exact second, when the perfect image of family shattered completely. The silence in that hospital room could have swallowed us whole. Brad's eyes, sharp and accusing, pinned Noah like a butterfly under glass. My husband sat frozen in the chair, his knuckles bone white against the armrests. Sweat rolled down his temple, and he looked like a man who'd been caught in a lie too big to escape. Whose baby is it? Brad demanded again, his voice hard now. Noah opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, no words came out, just shallow, ragged breaths. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clutched baby, her soft body pressed against mine like she was the only anchor I had left in this nightmare. Then the nurse burst through the door, snapping us back to reality. Is everything okay in here? We can hear raised voices at the nurse's station. I turned to her, my voice sharp with desperation. I want the visitor list updated, effective immediately. Only medical staff allowed in this room, no family, no one. The nurse nodded, already tapping into her tablet. Lucy, Mom began, but her voice cracked with fury. Out I snapped. Her face reddened, you ungrateful little. Two more nurses appeared, calm but firm, guiding her and Cindy toward the door. Mom dug her nails into the doorframe, shrieking about her rights as a grandmother, but the nurses kept moving. Cindy shuffled silently behind her, one hand protectively cupping the curve of her belly. Brad was the last to leave. He gave me a long, unreadable look before muttering, I've said my piece, and slipping out. And then it was just me, Noah, and our daughter in the suffocating silence. Noah sat like a statue, staring at the floor, his breath shallow. Finally, he pushed back from the chair so hard it scraped the linoleum. I need some air. And he was gone just like that. I sat there in the dim glow of the monitors, rocking my newborn, the scent of her skin mingling with the antiseptic hospital air. My whole world had narrowed to the tiny heartbeat pressed against mine, but in the corners of that world, shadows grew darker. Dad's last words echoed in my ears, name her after me. I had kept that promise, but everything else, my marriage, my family, my sanity, it all felt like it was crumbling. When I reached for my phone, dozens of messages lit the screen. Mom, if you don't let us back in, I'll cancel the insurance. Mom again, mortgage too, don't test me, Lucy. Then a string of texts from Cindy, long paragraphs of apologies, claims of misunderstanding, crying emojis, but nowhere did she answer the one question that mattered. Was her baby Noah's? I typed it out bluntly, is the baby his? Three dots appeared, then vanished, appeared again, vanished. Finally, she sent nothing but question marks and broken heart emojis. Her silence was answer enough. By the time the sun dipped behind the hospital blinds, exhaustion weighed down every bone in my body, but when the door creaked open again, sleep evaporated. Noah slipped inside. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair messy, and the faint smell of car exhaust clung to him. He sank into the chair, avoiding my eyes. I waited, my voice trembled when I finally asked, is it true? Is Cindy's baby yours? His head snapped up, no, God, no, Lucy, I would never. Then explain why Brad looked at you like that, why you froze. He rubbed his face, groaning. Because she's been texting me for months since Dad died. She said she couldn't talk to Mom and you were always at the hospital with him, so she reached out to me. But it wasn't, nothing happened, I swear. I stared at him, my mind racing, texting you privately behind my back. He nodded, shame in his eyes. I didn't want to burden you, you were already drowning with everything. Every word was like salt in an open wound. You should have told me, I whispered. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. The gulf between us stretched wider than ever. The next morning, a patient advocate came by with pamphlets and forms. She spoke gently, explaining options for legal aid, financial independence, even restraining orders if necessary. Economic abuse is real, she said, her pen tapping against a checklist. If your mother is threatening to cut off bills or housing to control your choices, that qualifies. I felt my chest tighten. Words I'd never dared put to the situation suddenly had names: abuse, control, manipulation. The advocate encouraged me to document everything, every threat, every text, every voicemail. By the time she left, I had a folder thick with papers and a mind buzzing with possibilities I'd never considered. And then, as if summoned by my thoughts, Mom's voice echoed from down the hall, loud, furious, unstoppable. I heard the sharp click of her heels, the rise and fall of her shrieking about disrespect and her rights. Security was called, radios crackled, and finally silence again. But the damage was done. My chest ached from the tension and baby stirred restlessly in my arms, her cries small but piercing. 2 days later, discharge day arrived. The nurse wheeled me out, Noah walking silently beside us, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The drive home was suffocating. The baby's tiny whimpers filled the car. Noah gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought it might crack. When we pulled into the driveway, I turned to him. You'll sleep on the couch until we figure this out. He didn't argue, he just nodded, shoulders slumping as he grabbed his pillow and disappeared downstairs. That night, alone in the nursery, I rocked in the soft glow of the... My eyes fell on the crib we'd built together, the wallpaper we'd chosen, the mobile he'd hung with careful hands. And then, while putting away some blankets, I found it receipts, stuffed into drawers, folded carelessly. Free gas station charges near Cindy's apartment, on nights Noah claimed to be working late. My heart lurched. The walls seemed to close in around me. The next morning, while feeding the baby, I called the number from the advocate's pamphlet and scheduled a consultation with a lawyer. The receptionist spoke like she'd heard this 100 times. We deal with family financial control cases every day, you're not alone. Not alone, the words settled in me like a seed of strength. But when I hung up, my phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Mom, her voice sharp as glass. You drop this nonsense about Cindy's baby and the testing, or I pull every cent. Mortgage, insurance, phone gone, you'll have nothing. I saved the voicemail, sent it straight to my lawyer. That night, Noah found me in the nursery, phone clutch in my hand, tears streaming down my face. Lucy, he whispered, reaching for me, we can fix this, please. But when I looked at him, all I could see were those receipts, the lies, the nights near Cindy's apartment. I turned away. For the first time in our marriage, I realized I didn't know if we could fix this. The days blurred, feedings, sleepless nights, threats from Mom, silence from Cindy. And then an email. From the lab. Consent forms for prenatal paternity testing. I stared at them, my heart pounding. Cindy's signature was required. Without it, I'd never know if her baby was Noah's. My hands shook as I forwarded the forms with a single message. Sign this, I'll pay for everything. Minutes passed, then a reply. Why are you trying to destroy our family? No answer, no denial. I closed my eyes, clutching my baby to my chest. And a question burned through my mind, relentless and consuming. If Cindy's baby is Brad's and it is Noah's, then whose is it? I thought the hard part was over once I brought my daughter home. I thought the long nights in the hospital chair, the contractions that ripped through me like fire, the fight over her name, that all of that was the storm. But I was wrong, the real storm was only beginning. Our house felt different now, almost hostile. The nursery that once seemed like a dream was heavy with silence. The pastel walls and tiny clothes and drawers mocked me. At night, I paced the floor with cradled against me, listening to her soft whimpers and trying to ignore the creaks in the floorboard downstairs where Noah slept on the couch. We spoke only when we had to. His footsteps in the kitchen, the sound of the fridge door opening, the faint clatter of dishes, it all felt like noise from a stranger, not my husband. Caught myself studying him when he held our daughter. His hands were gentle, his voice soft, but my eyes searched for cracks, guilt, lies, anything that might tell me the truth. And every time he avoided my gaze, I wondered, did he betray me? The receipts still burned in my mind. 3 late night stops at gas stations near Cindy's apartment, while lie about being at work if it was innocent. One night when the bae finally slept, I rummaged through his desk drawers. My hands trembled as I sifted through old bills, sticky notes, half-empty packs of gum. Then, tucked between insurance documents, I found it, a receipt. Pick up our house. Drop off and address 2 blocks from Cindy's apartment. Date 6 weeks ago. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. That was the night he'd said he was at a team dinner. When Noah came upstairs later, I held the paper up, my hand shaking. Explain this. His face drained of color. Lucy, Cindy called me that night. She was drunk, crying at some bar, said she needed someone to drive her home. I didn't want to worry with everything going on at the hospital, so I went, that's all. I laughed bitterly, then why drop her off 2 blocks away? Why lie to me? He opened his mouth, then shut it again. His eyes darted, his story shifting like sand. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. The truth wasn't going to come from Noah, I would have to dig it out myself. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail. Mom again, her voice sharp as knives. You think you're clever running around with lawyers and tests? You're destroying this family, Lucy. You'll regret it. Drop the paternity nonsense, or I'll make sure you lose everything. I forwarded it straight to my attorney. My lawyer's voice was steady when she called me back. Keep every message, every voicemail. It's evidence of economic abuse and intimidation. The words should have comforted me, but instead they left me colder. My own mother was waging war against me and Cindy. Cindy was a ghost, answering none of my questions, dodging every attempt at clarity. At night, with the baby nestled against my chest, I lay awake listening to Noah breathe on the couch downstairs, wondering what he was telling me. A week passed before Cindy finally agreed to meet. She texted one morning, coffee shop downtown, no mom, just us. I almost didn't go, but curiosity and desperation outweighed the risk. I left with Noah's mom and drove there, my palms sweating against the steering wheel. Cindy was already in a corner booth, her hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. For once, she didn't look like the golden child, she looked fragile. When I slid into the booth, she whispered, I'll sign the forms, I'll do the test, but only if you promise not to tell mom until the results come in. Her hands shook so badly the pen nearly slipped as she scribbled her name across the paperwork. I stared at her, my voice low. Cindy, just tell me now, is the baby Noah's? Her eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing, just shoved the papers back across the table and stood up so quickly her chair screeched against the floor. She fled before I could stop her. 2 days later, Noah and I sat in the sterile waiting room of a genetics lab, the air thick with antiseptic and quiet sobs from other families. A woman in a lab coat explained the process. Cheek swabs for Noah, blood draw for Cindy, all sealed with special tape, a strict chain of custody. Cindy wouldn't look at me or at Noah, her face was pale, her jaw clenched. When the nurse finished, sealing the samples in a padded envelope, the technician said calmly, 2 weeks for results. 2 weeks, 14 days of torment. On the drive home, Noah kept glancing at me, his knuckles tight around the steering wheel. Lucy, you have to believe me, I never touched her. But the receipts, though, the secrecy. Believing you, I whispered, staring out the window, isn't an option anymore. The waiting nearly broke me. I carried from room to room, her baby scent soft and milky, her tiny fist curling around my fingers. She was perfect, pure, and I wondered how I could shield her from the ugliness that surrounded us. Noah's presence was both comfort and poison. He helped with feedings, changed diapers, sang lullabies softly in the night, but every kindness was shadowed by doubt. At 3 in the morning, rocking the baby in the dark, the question looped endlessly in my mind. What if it's his? What if my sister is carrying my husband's child? One night I snapped. I whispered into the quiet nursery, why, Dad, why did you leave me to deal with this? But no answer came, only the faint hum of the baby monitor. On the 10th day, I received an unexpected call, not from the lab, but from my attorney. Her voice was urgent. Lucy, your mother filed a petition for over your grandmother. She's claiming you're too unstable to be responsible. She attached a statement suggesting postpartum depression and erratic behavior. My throat tightened. She's trying to take grandma away from me. Not just grandma, my lawyer warned. This could affect custody. Judges don't take kindly to claims of instability. I clutched the phone so hard my fingers ached. She's trying to destroy me. Yes, the attorney said bluntly. That's why you need to stay steady, document everything, don't give her ammunition. When I hung up, my hands shook. The fight over a name had spiraled into a war for my very stability, my identity as a mother. That night, Cindy texted me a blurry photo of an ultrasound. She's real, please believe me. The picture looked authentic, no obvious signs of Google theft this time. I stared at it until my eyes burned. If her baby was real, then everything else, the lies, the padding, the inheritance scheme, it was all more complicated than I thought. The next day, Noah caught me staring at the printout on the kitchen counter. Lucy, he said softly, we'll get the results soon, then you'll know. I turned on him, my voice breaking. What if I already do? What if her silence is the answer? His face crumpled. And for a flicker of a moment, I thought I saw guilt, not fear, not frustration, but guilt, flash in his eyes. That night, with the baby finally asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, receipts and documents spread before me. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock. And the question that had been simmering finally spilled into the open, loud in my own head. What if Cindy isn't lying about being pregnant, but lying about who the father is? The waiting was killing me. Every day stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I kept checking my email, refreshing the lab portal, waiting for results that never came. 2 weeks felt like a lifetime, and in that lifetime, my house had turned into a war zone of silence. Noah moved like a ghost through the rooms, helping with the baby, cooking dinner, folding laundry, but there was no warmth. We spoke only about bottles and diapers, never about Cindy, never about the test. The air between us was sharp, like walking barefoot over broken glass. And then on the 13th day, everything cracked. It started small. I was in the nursery folding tiny onesies when I heard Noah's phone buzz on the kitchen counter. Another message. My chest tightened. He hadn't locked his phone this time. I walked out, my steps too quiet, my pulse too loud. The screen glowed with a preview. Cindy, we need to talk alone. The room spun, my hands shook as I grabbed the phone. Before I could read more, Noah appeared in the doorway. His face went pale when he saw the phone in my hands. Lucy, give it back. I clutched it. Why is she texting you? Why is she asking to meet alone? His jaw tightened. It's not what you think. It never is, my voice cracked. You said you barely spoke, that it was just texting when Dad was dying, so why now? Why alone? What aren't you telling me? The baby started crying in the nursery, her wail slicing through the tension, but neither of us moved. Finally, Noah exhaled, his voice low. Because she wants me to lie, she wants me to tell the lab not to process the test. I froze. And you were actually considering it? No, of course not, but she's desperate, Lucy. She's scared of losing everything. Scared of losing everything, I snapped. What about me? What about us? What about the promise I made to Dad? The baby's cries grew louder, frantic. I rushed to her crib, scooping her up, rocking her against my chest as tears blurred my vision. Over her tiny head, I looked at Noah, and for the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man I couldn't trust. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every vibration of my phone felt like another betrayal creeping closer. By morning, I was exhausted, my head pounding, my nerves raw. That's when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Cindy stood there. Her face was pale, lips cracked, eyes sunken, and her belly was rounder than I remembered, visible now beneath her oversized hoodie. Lucy, she whispered, please, I need to talk to you. I wanted to slam the door in her face. Instead, I stepped aside. She sat on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands. I know you hate me, but I'm scared, really scared, and I don't know who else to turn to. I stood with my arms crossed, the baby in her bassinet beside me. Cut the act, you've lied before, why should I believe you now? Her eyes filled with tears. Because this time I can't fake it, the baby's real, the ultrasounds are real, and if mom finds out who the father is, she'll destroy me. My stomach dropped, so there's a father who. She bit her lip silent. Cindy, I said, my voice sharp, if it's Noah, you tell me right now. Her face crumbled, she buried her face in her hands and sobbed. The sound made my skin crawl. Answer me, I shouted. But she didn't. The baby stirred in her bassinet, fussing. I bent down to soothe her, but when I looked up again, Cindy was staring, not at me, not at the baby, but at Noah, who had just walked into the room. And in that glance, in that heavy silence, I felt the world tilt. Noah froze in the doorway, his eyes locking with Cindy's. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. My hands trembled as I lifted the baby, holding her like a shield. Tell me the truth, both of you, right now. Cindy's voice broke first. Lucy, it's not what you think. Noah's face twisted, torn between words and silence. And then, as if fate had been waiting for this exact moment, my phone buzzed on the counter. The lab's number lit the screen. I fumbled to answer, my voice shaking. Hello. Calm voice on the other end. Mrs., this is the lab. We have your preliminary results. My knees nearly buckled and Noah is excluded as the biological father with 99.9% certainty. I gripped the counter, relief and confusion crashing together. Tears blurred my vision. Thank you. I hung up, turned to them, and for the first time saw fear in both their faces. Belief should have been sweet, but instead suspicion only grew stronger. If Noah wasn't the father, then who was? And why did both of them look like they were hiding something anyway? I should have felt free, I should have felt vindicated. But that night, as I rocked my daughter in the nursery, I remembered Cindy's face, the way she'd sobbed but never spoken, the way she'd looked at Noah like they shared a secret. And a question not at me, more poisonous than ever. What's worse, my husband being the father of her child, or them lying together about something even darker? The answer came faster than I expected. 3 days later, I got a call from Grandma's care facility. My heart sank when the nurse said, Lucy, your grandmother was found at a bus stop 3 miles away. She wandered out during a shift change. I rushed over, baby in tow, only to find Mom already there berating the staff, waving her arms wildly. This wouldn't have happened if you'd let me handle her affairs, Mom snapped at me the moment I walked in. You're too distracted, too unstable. But behind her tirade, I noticed Cindy sitting in the waiting area, her hoodie pulled tight, her hands cradling her belly protectively. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I crouched beside her, my voice low. Cindy, who's the father? Her lips parted. She looked up at me, her eyes bloodshot, her voice barely a whisper. You don't want to know. You don't want to know. The way Cindy whispered it, her eyes fixed on the floor, made the hairs rise on the back of my neck. What do you mean I don't want to know? I hissed, leaning closer. You've dragged me through hell, Cindy. I deserve to know. Before she could answer, Mom's voice boomed across the care facility lobby. Lucy, stop poisoning your sister. She's fragile. Pregnant women don't need stress. Cindy flinched like a child caught stealing. I stood up, my fists clenched, but before I could speak, a nurse rushed over. Ma'am, we need you both to calm down. Your grandmother's fine. She's resting now, but any more shouting and you'll upset the residents. Mom glared at me, lips pressed tight, and stormed outside. Cindy muttered, I can't do this here, and hurried after her. And once again, I was left with nothing but questions, a baby on my hip, and a sick feeling crawling up my throat. That night, I couldn't stop replaying her words, you don't want to know. Why not? What could be worse than Noah? What could be worse than the betrayal I already feared? I didn't sleep. By dawn, with the baby stirring restlessly beside me, I'd made a decision. If Cindy wouldn't talk, I'd find proof myself. 2 days later, I got a call that made my heart drop. Cindy was in the hospital. She collapsed at work, apparently dizzy and short of breath. They admitted her to run tests, worried about complications with the pregnancy. When I arrived, the antiseptic sting of the ER hit me hard, mingling with the steady beep of monitors and the low murmur of voices behind curtains. She was lying in a bed, pale against the white sheets, an IV snaking into her arm. When she saw me, she didn't sneer, she didn't smirk, she just whispered, you came. I swallowed hard, of course I came. Her eyes welled, I'm scared, Lucy, the baby, they said something's wrong. Doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Miss, he began, your vitals have stabilized, but the ultrasound showed some irregularities. We'd like to do further imaging and x-ray of your chest to rule out underlying issues unrelated to the pregnancy. Cindy nodded weakly. My throat tightened, is the baby okay? The doctor hesitated. For now, yes, but we need to investigate further. When he left, Cindy's hand shot out, gripping mine with surprising strength. Promise you won't let Mom spin this, promise you'll protect me. Her grip was clammy, desperate. I wanted to yank my hand away, I wanted to scream at her for all the lies, but instead I whispered, then tell me the truth, Cindy, who's the father? Her lips parted, her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me. And just when I thought she might actually answer, Mom barged in. She swept into the room like a storm cloud, her perfume thick and suffocating. Oh, my poor baby, she cried, rushing to Cindy's side, brushing past me like I wasn't even there. Don't you worry, Mom's here, I'll take care of everything. Cindy's hand slipped from mine, she turned her face to the wall. I stood frozen, fury bowling. Lucy, Mom snapped without looking at me, why don't you go home to your baby, you've done enough damage here. My nails dug into my palms, I wanted to scream to tell her she was the damage, but Cindy's shoulders trembled and I realized this wasn't the time. So I walked out. In the hallway, I stopped at the nurse's station. The same doctor was there reviewing charts. Doctor, I said, my voice low, if you suspect abuse or coercion, you'll document it, right? He looked at me steadily. We document everything, but right now our priority is keeping both mother and baby stable. I nodded, though my stomach churned. As I turned to leave, a nurse whispered to him, thinking I couldn't hear, you think she'll tell the truth this time? That night, I couldn't breathe for the weight of it all. I sat in the dark nursery, baby pressed to my chest, rocking back and forth. Truth, lies, secrets. The next morning, Noah found me at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, receipts, screenshots, texts, my own frantic notes. You're spiraling, he said quietly. I looked up exhausted. She's hiding something bigger, I know it, and I can't stop until I figure it out. He sat across from me, his face lined with worry. Lucy, what if the truth really is worse? What if it breaks you? I shook my head, the not knowing is already breaking me. A week later, the hospital called. Cindy was being discharged, but not before the doctors confirmed something strange. Her chest x-ray had revealed scar tissue. When I asked what it meant, the nurse said, it suggests she's had prior procedures, significant ones. I frowned, procedures, what kind? The nurse hesitated, it's not my place to speculate. But I couldn't shake the thought Cindy had never mentioned any surgeries. What had she done and why was she hiding it? The following day, Cindy showed up at my door. Her hoodie was pulled tight, her hair messy, her eyes hollow. She pushed past me without asking, we need to talk. I crossed my arms, then talk. She sank onto the couch, her hands cradling her belly. You remember last year when I disappeared for a while, when Mom said I went on a wellness retreat? I nodded slowly. Her eyes brimmed with tears. It wasn't a retreat, it was a clinic, I had a procedure. I felt my stomach drop, what kind of procedure? Her lips trembled, the kind you don't tell anyone about, the kind that means this pregnancy isn't what you think it is. I sat down hard, my pulse racing. Cindy stopped talking in riddles, say it. Her voice cracked, barely audible. This baby, it wasn't conceived naturally. This baby, it wasn't conceived naturally. The words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating. I stared at Cindy, my mind refusing to catch up. What do you mean not naturally? Her hands trembled as she pulled her hoodie around her belly. I mean IVF, but not the kind you think. My throat went dry, you're lying. Her chin wobbled, I wish I was. I pressed a hand to my forehead, trying to steady my thoughts. So you went to clinic, why would you do that? You weren't even in a relationship. That's why she cut me off, her voice sharp with pain. I wanted a baby, Lucy, I wanted something of my own. Mom kept saying I was broken, that no man would stay after 3 miscarriages. I wanted to prove her wrong. I thought if I had a baby, she'd finally see me as more than a failure. I sank into the armchair across from her, shaking my head. So you went to clinic and what? Chose a donor. Denny's eyes flicked away, her silence was deafening. Oh my god, I whispered, the pieces clicking. You didn't choose a stranger, did you? You used someone's sample you knew. Her tears spilled over. And suddenly I understood why she had looked at Noah the way she did, why she had dodged every direct question, why the air between them was always heavy. I whispered, tell me you didn't. Her sobs shook the room. Before I could press her, the front door opened. Noah stepped inside, carrying groceries. He froze when he saw Cindy on the couch, her face streaked with tears, my face pale with horror. What's going on? He asked cautiously. Cindy's voice cracked, she knows. Noah's bag slipped from his hand, came clattering across the floor. I stood, my voice shaking with rage. What did you do, Noah? What did you let her do? He looked at me, then at Cindy, then back at me, his eyes wide with panic. I didn't, Lucy, I swear I didn't know. I had no idea until after. After what? I snapped. After she stole your DNA. Cindy wailed, it wasn't like that. But Noah's silence was all the answer I needed. My vision blurred, I pressed a hand to the wall, trying to steady myself. Explain right now, or I swear I'll call the police. Noah's voice was hoarse. She had access. Remember when I did that ancestry kit last year? The one Mom kept teasing me about, saying it was a waste of money. I mailed it from the house, but I never got results back. I thought it got lost. He turned to Cindy, his face pale. You stole it, didn't you? You took my kit. Cindy sobbed harder, her shoulders shaking. I didn't steal it, I borrowed it. Mom helped me send it to the clinic. They matched it, Noah. You were a perfect candidate. Healthy, young. They told me I could carry your child. My stomach lurched. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. So what you're saying, I whispered, is that my sister went behind my back with Mom's help and used my husband's DNA to get pregnant. Neither of them answered. The silence was worse than words. I grabbed my phone, dialing my attorney's number with shaking fingers, but before I could press call, Cindy reached out, gripping my wrist. Please, Lucy, don't. I didn't do this to hurt you. I wanted a piece of Dad too. I wanted to feel connected. I thought if the baby was Noah's, it would still be family, it would still be ours. Her voice broke, I wanted what you had. I yanked my arm free, disgust crawling through me. You didn't want family, you wanted to steal mine. The next hours blurred into chaos. Noah tried to explain, swearing he'd had no involvement, no knowledge. Cindy sobbed until her voice was hoarse. And me? I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my daughter in her bassinet, her tiny chest rising and falling. How could I raise her in a world this twisted? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. She listened silently as I explained, my word tumbling out in gasps and sobs. And I finished, her tone was calm but firm. Lucy, this isn't just betrayal. This is a violation of medical ethics. If she used his DNA without his consent, that's fraud, potentially criminal. But more importantly, you need to protect yourself and your child right now. My knees shook under the table. What do I do? Document everything and don't confront your mother alone. You'll need an ally. Do you have anyone who's firmly on your side? I thought about it. Everyone felt compromised except Brad. The man who'd exposed Cindy's fake pregnancy scheme before. He hated lies. He had nothing to lose. That night, I messaged Brad asking to meet. We sat in a diner booth under flickering neon, the smell of fried food heavy in the air. I told him everything, the kit, the clinic, the confession. He leaned back, whistling low. Damn, that's darker than even I thought. Will you help me? I asked, my voice breaking. Brad nodded slowly. Yeah, but Lucy, you realize what this means, right? Your mom's not just manipulative, she's dangerous. She enabled this, maybe even orchestrated it. I closed my eyes, ball rising in my throat. I had known Mom was cruel, controlling, manipulative, but this was something else entirely. When I got home, Noah was waiting in the living room. He looked like he hadn't moved since I left, his eyes were trimmed. Lucy, he said, his voice raw, I swear to you I never touched her, I never even knew. Please don't let this destroy us. I looked at him for a long time. You're right, I said finally, you didn't destroy us. I took a breath, my voice cold. Mom and Cindy did. The following week was a blur of paperwork and strategy. My lawyer drew up affidavits, prepared to subpoena the clinic records, even threatened to involve medical boards. But Mom was quiet. She blew up my phone, calling me vindictive, jealous, ungrateful. She sent group texts to relatives, spinning a story where Cindy was the victim, a poor broken girl harassed by her cruel sister. Blocked her, but the poison still spread. Aunts, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly flooded me with opinions. Some begged me to forgive. Others whispered that they weren't surprised, that mom had always twisted things to her will. It was like standing in the middle of a battlefield, grenades going off on every side. Finally, the clinic responded to my lawyer's demands. They confirmed Cindy had used a genetic sample belonging to Noah without his signed consent. I felt the blood drain from my face as I read the document. Noah sat across from me, his hands trembling as he reached for it. She really did it. Yes, I whispered, she really did. The truth was out. But the fallout was just beginning. 3 nights later, I was jolted awake by pounding on my front door. When I opened it, Mom stood there wild-eyed, her hair disheveled, clutching papers in her hand. You can't do this, she hissed, shoving the papers toward me. You'll ruin all of us. Drop the case, Lucy. Drop it or I swear you'll regret it. Behind her, Cindy stood on the porch, her belly outlined in the glow of the porch light, her eyes hollow. And in that moment, with the night air sharp in my lungs and my baby crying upstairs, I realized. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was war. The night Mom showed up pounding on my door felt like the final straw. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice sharp as a knife. She shoved papers at me, half legal threats, half scrawled notes. Cindy hovered behind her, silent, her swollen belly almost glowing in the porch light. Drop the case, Mom hissed, or you'll regret it. Upstairs wailed, her cry cutting through the night like truth itself. I met Mom's gaze, steady this time. No, I won't drop it, not now, not ever. And for the first time in my life, I saw something flicker across her face, fear. The weeks that followed were brutal. Lawyers, hearings, social workers, every step felt like walking barefoot over shattered glass. But something shifted inside me. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was fighting. I documented everything, Mom's voicemails, Cindy's confession, the clinic's records confirming Noah's DNA was used without consent. My attorney built a binder so thick it barely closed, tabs dividing lies from truths, threats from proof. In court, the judge listened as the clinic rep. Words like fraud, unauthorized use, and violation of protocol filled the room. Mom's lawyer sputtered about family privacy, Cindy cried in the corner. But when the gavel finally came down, the ruling was clear. Mom lost all control over Grandma's finances. A professional conservator would handle everything from now on. And the court opened a separate investigation into Cindy's clinic procedures. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in years. But freedom comes with a cost. If my relatives cut me off completely, swallowing Mom's lies whole, others texted me quietly, whispering support, but too afraid to speak out loud. The family I thought I had, it didn't exist anymore. And maybe that was okay. Noah and I entered therapy. It wasn't easy. Sitting across from him in that little room with the ticking clock on the wall and the therapist's calm gaze, I spilled everything, the receipts, the lies, the nights of doubt. He admitted to his mistakes, the secrecy, the lies of omission, the way he let Cindy confide in him instead of setting boundaries. I should told you, he said, tears streaming down his face. I should chosen you every time, and I didn't, but I never touched her, Lucy, I swear I never did. Did I believe him? Some days yes, some days no, but there he gave us tools, rules, transparency. Slowly, brick by brick, we started to rebuild. It wasn't perfect, maybe it never would be, but for the first time I felt like we were trying. Cindy gave birth 6 weeks later. I wasn't there, I couldn't be, but she sent me a photo, her tiny son hooked to monitors, premature but alive. She didn't name him Daniel like Mom demanded. She didn't name him after Dad. She named him a name she'd once scribbled in her high school journals. For the first time, she chose something of her own. Her text was short, I'm sorry for all of it, I'm trying to get better. I saved the photo but didn't reply, not yet, maybe someday. Mom, she spiraled. With Grandma's money gone, her influence crumbled. Her Facebook rants grew wilder, full of conspiracy and victimhood. Eventually, I blocked her everywhere. And in that silence, in that distance, I finally felt peace. One quiet afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the nursery floor, I held in my arms. She was growing fast, her tiny fingers grabbing at my necklace, her eyes curious and bright. I opened the drawer of the nightstand and pulled out Dad's letter. His shaky handwriting filled the page. Name her after me, Lucy. Keep me alive in her. I read it aloud, my voice soft, my daughter cooing in my arms. And for the first time since all this began, I felt like I had truly kept my promise. Not just to Dad, but to myself. Family isn't about blood. It isn't about who controls the money, who screams the loudest, or who manipulates the deepest. Family is about love, truth, and the boundaries we choose. And sometimes family is about walking away. So here I am, changed but stronger. My daughter's name is still my father's legacy, my promise. The rest, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, they're just echoes now. But every time I look at her, I remember I survived. We survived. And now I'll ask you, what would you have done if your own sister betrayed you this deeply? Would you fight for the truth or keep the peace to hold the family together? Tell me in the comments, and if you want more real stories like this, subscribe, you'll never miss the next chapter.